In today's video, I talked to the returning Pete Fry. He was a guest in Series 3, which took place in 2022, during which the whole world was still recovering and getting back on its feet after the COVID lockdown. We catch up on what has happened since we last spoke, what has changed, and we revisit our conversation from the last episode of the Autism Connections. Hi all, and welcome to episode 3 of the in-person interviews on the Autism Connections Series 6. We're celebrating 5 years of the Autism Connections. I'm having a guest back from every series that I've done, and today we have Mr. Pete Fry on the show again. Pete, thank you for coming on.
Morning, Max. Pleasure.
So, my first question I've been asking everyone is, for you, so you were on Series 3.
Yeah.
What sort of changed for you in those last sort of 2 years?
Last 2 years for me, Max, we all had to go through the dreaded lockdown. So I've always played guitar, as you know. So you think, well, what do I do now? So I play a bit more guitar, which I did do, and I got myself a mandolin and a ukulele, so I thought I'll have a go at that, and that's what I've been doing. Not very good at it, but yeah, so you now can play ukulele as well? Yeah, I wouldn't put myself like right up at the top of the ukulele scales, but yeah, so that really.
So in terms of, obviously, autism, neurodiversity, and teaching-wise, I think last time we spoke, you're now retired from the sort of teaching field and everything else. For you, in your career, especially in the later time, do you think you saw more neurodiversity as the years went by?
I think I probably did, Max, but not really understanding what it was.
Okay.
To be honest with you, but like knowing you, and then sort of think, then pupils that come after you, think, hang on, there's something that sort of like matches together here with Max. Not exactly the same, but you think there's a bit of a sort of strange sort of scenario here. I think, well, I've seen this before. Yeah, so I suppose that's the sort of how I start to come to terms with, and then you hear that people had been diagnosed, you think, oh, hang on, well,
that makes sense.
This works now. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense.
And did you sort of apply those things that you may have applied with me to those students? And I'm guessing it didn't work all the time, and then you had to try and come up with something new.
Well, the same what you just said, Max. Yeah, you think, well, what did you do with Max? You think, well, we'll try that, which did work. And then some things, hang on, this isn't working at all. So then you think, have I got it right? Have I got it wrong? But basically think, well, what did we do with Max? And well, let's try that, and hopefully it works.
I remember at school, the thing that really brought me out of my shell was, I'll never forget, it was activity day, and I went to the wrong activity, and you were doing a sort of sing karaoke activity. And a lot of teachers would have just gone, Max, you're not meant to be here, go to your activity that you're meant to.
Yeah.
And I remember you just sort of going, what's it matter?
Come and join in.
And I remember the next day, you said to me that day, you said, how would you feel about singing in front of the school tomorrow?
Yeah.
And it was a song I didn't know, but it was Slade, and it was near Christmas, so it was So here it is, Merry Christmas. And the next day I was singing in front of the school. I went home, got on the Skybox, got the subtitles up, learning the song. Mum and Dad going mad, thinking, oh God, here we go. And Honestly, for my school life, it changed a lot because I didn't know how to interact with people. I didn't know how to make friends. And from that, entertaining people,
I mean,
I made a lot of friends.
that was one thing, you used to sort of like just sort of see this guy, he just loves performing. It's almost like it's different. I don't mean that in a nasty way.
No.
It's different, but if this guy he's born to perform, whatever it is. And I don't mean this in the way nasty, Max. You sort of think, he's not going to take no for an answer, this guy. Hang on. I don't know if you could sing on this particular performance, what I'm going to. I mean, and I admire you for that. Yeah. It's like, not in a nasty way. I mean, you could go overboard.
Yeah.
But when it comes to singing and performing, you were never nasty, but you just knew that you were not going to take no for an answer. I mean, you were the sort of, if you worked in marketing, Max, you'd sell ice to the people that live in the Arctic. You really would, because you ain't going to take no for it. If you turn up with a bucket of ice, well, we got enough of it here. Well, I'm not going till you bought a bucket. Because and that's what you're like, and that's it's a lovely thing.
Yeah.
But sometimes you think, oh no, Max,
give it a rest.
I know you're not going to sort of say, accept this answer, no, but just like, give us a break, just do it once, just say no once and go. But yeah, I do admire you for that.
That's how I got the interview.
And then at times when you think we're going to do another performance, which we've done more than one, and think, well, it was sort of like pretty odds on, well, yeah, we'll put Max in here. Well, put Max in. If we don't put him in, he's going to put himself in, so let's carry on. No, it's lovely.
I think the thing is with that though, and I always remember as I left the school, I would often say to you still doing the plays? And I always remember through the years and the years went by, you got sadly less and less of that because of the direction that the school wanted to go in. I mean, for you, do you think that is just as important to do and learn and
as in performing arts? Yeah, I mean, that's me. People would disagree. It's people like sport and stuff, and everybody don't like sport. There's a lot of children, they probably hate the fact we got sport tomorrow.
I didn't like it. I was not good at it.
But there's a lot of children, we got music tomorrow. I hate it. But there's also a lot of children, if they're not very sort of like good at maths or English or reading, but they sort of, their moment is on the sports field or singing and dancing. And I think there's room for everybody, and everybody should be given that option, not like, we don't agree with singing, because it's not reading and writing and bits and pieces, so we don't want to emphasise too much on singing and, running round tracks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it's important that everybody should have the chance to do everything equally, if you see what I mean. If we get 2 hours of reading, we should have 2 hours of sport. Just whether the children like it or not, because if you don't like singing and you loved it, so that's your moment. Yeah. But then you've got to face it, well, after singing, we've got a load of maths to do, which you didn't like that.
Hated it.
And I must have, when I was at school, so did I. And I was never a lover of science.
Yeah. It's funny with science, and it make you laugh. I loved everything to do with the human body, and I think I liked that because I could understand it.
Yeah.
A bit like a computer. You've got the outer shell and you've got the bits inside that work, and that interests me because I can relate to it. But when you're talking about chemicals that aren't in my body, that aren't going to affect me, that I will probably never touch, see or breathe, I lose interest. Like the periodic table. To me, it's like...
What's that?
Yeah, how many of those elements
Yeah.
am I going to need to know in my life?
Yeah.
How many of them am I? And if I'm going to be a scientist, that's fine. I need to know.
Yeah, because you need, if like you said, we all need to know if we're going to be one of those.
But if I don't, and I always had this conversation, and I said it to people at government when I'd done a talk at Parliament. They sort of looked at me as like, well, what do you suggest we do about like the education? So I'm thinking, well, you guys are getting paid the stupid amount of money that you get. But I just said, what is the point of me leaving school knowing how many wives Henry VIII had, but I can't read a pay slip, or I can't write a resume, or I've not got those basic life skills that I need.
Yeah.
And there's no shame in admitting it. I mean, I spoke to another autistic advocate, and me and him both shared the experience that both of us, in terms of cooking, cleaning, in the kitchen, we are absolutely useless.
Yeah, so am I, Max. It's really weird. I mean, we have this thing in the house here. I'm not the greatest cook in the world by a long shot. And with my boys, I used to do the cooking, and everything revolved around mashed potato. They used to come home and sort of say, hello, what's under the mash tonight? It's like lucky dip.
Love it. My dad's the same, bacon sandwich.
Well, my thing was I made a fish pie once. Well, fish pie underneath mash, and like, no fish. So, I mean, I thought it was all right, really, but, they just said, well, we're going out to eat, because it's what I'd done. I put fish fingers underneath the mash. Well, that didn't work.
I mean, for you, and feel free not to answer this, have you ever sort of thought to yourself, could I be neurodiverse, or anyone in your family? Have you ever thought that? It's okay if not. I mean, I often look at my dad and definitely think he's ADHD. I think my mum's definitely autistic.
Have I ever thought that? Possibly no. But then, yeah, maybe there are certain bits and pieces of you. Maybe not that, but I don't know what it is. Maybe there's sort of things like sometimes you sort of like, you look at it, that doesn't look right. I'm going to move that to there, and then move it back. But then, so making that decision, whether that ornament looks all right, then no, it doesn't. Looks better there.
Yeah.
Then it looks better. So I don't know what that is. I have that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I always say, you'll laugh. I don't get annoyed. I try not to, because I know people, they always mean well when they speak to anyone that's neurodiverse, but you often get people that go, oh, everyone's a bit autistic, or everyone's a bit neurodiverse. And I always sort of look at them, and I think they sort of go, oh God, what have I said? Because to me, it's a bit like saying everyone's a little bit pregnant. It's like, you either are or you're not. Now, could you show traits of someone that's pregnant? Of course you could. You could be hungry, you could be flustered, you could be moody, you could, everyone can show traits of a cold. Everyone could show traits of a pregnancy, but it doesn't mean that you are. If you're suddenly hungry, I'm not going to go, oh, everyone's a bit pregnant, Pete. You must be a little bit pregnant. So with autism, I always don't get annoyed with people, because I know they say it to make you feel better. They're sort of trying to relate. It's a bit like, well, we're all a little bit, and it's funny because the work I've done, a lot of autistic people hate it, because it's like, well, no, you know. But I think what you've highlighted is you can definitely have traits of that, and I agree with that. I've met so many people that have traits of neurodiversity, moving things, for instance, or not being able to sit still, or being really focused on one thing, so they watch something and then suddenly they're so hyper-focused, want to know everything about it, everything that's ever, so completely get that. I mean, for you, your wife works in a school as well.
Yeah.
So obviously you being retired, you know, for her, do you sort of do you hear about sort of how it's changed maybe from when you were doing it versus now?
I do and I don't, Max, to be fair, because you try and, in her defence more than mine, to try and sort of like keep that out the way, so it doesn't become a continual, you know, she comes home and it becomes an extension of a working day. Oh, what did you do? I always sort of say, do you have a good day? Yeah, or no, I didn't have a good day. Might sort of touch, oh, this happened, you know, like for instance, there's a few weeks, oh, some child, you'll relate to this, you know, decided he'd set the fire alarm off at dinner time.
Yeah.
So, but we don't sort of try and just extend the day of like,
Any longer.
She comes in at tea time sort of thing, and it's sort of 8:30 and we're still talking school. And I don't think that's fair to her, to be fair.
And did you find that hard, like working in a school, to separate that? I mean, obviously I've had my career and I do find it very hard to leave work at work, you know, so when you do come home, especially when you've had that day where you just...
Yeah, I know what you mean. You have to offload a problem, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, like you said, you can't just sort of like bottle it up. So yeah, on the odd occasion you think, look, hang on, I'll tell you what's happened.
Max came round.
Yeah.
Enough said.
Yeah. Yeah, what sort of day you had? Well, I've been with Max all day and it was one of those.
Yeah. Again, though, you go to that. I mean, I always use that as a brilliant example when I do my speeches, because for people that watch my videos, I couldn't talk till I was 6, you know, and I'll never forget, you were probably the only one in primary school that really actually knew all the time how I was feeling. And it was because of that unwritten rule of communication that we had that one day that was just like, you having one of them?
It was almost like sign language, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In a word.
Yeah.
That was all right.
Yeah.
But everybody knew it's one of those. Or, yeah, it was almost like... But I suppose we did communicate like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
First thing in the morning. Good morning, Max.
One of them.
Hoping to get one back.
Yeah. But I always think, like, say for you and a lot of people, you know, a lot of training for neurodiversity, autism wasn't available. It wasn't really...
No, exactly. No.
So for you to come up with that when you've got a bunch of teachers sort of struggling to think, how are we going to know how Max is feeling today?
Yeah.
And then you just come along and go...
Well, I did communicate like that by being asked, you know, what's he like, as in he being you, what's he like today?
Yeah.
You know, how did dinner time go?
Yeah, the food.
How's this afternoon going? But yeah, you know, you sort of, you know, you just knew. But I don't know, I just knew, and not just me on my own. I didn't sort of like, you know, get through it on my own. I used to sort of communicate with other people, you know, they would be. But there's always something that you knew, how do you get this out, this lad that's, despite can be an absolute pain.
Yeah.
But how can you get, under once he comes out of that problem stage, you know, we're talking, there's a nice lad underneath all who's potentially he's got something to do, you know, he might be able to, but there's something in there that you got to get out, because you know, he's quite bright underneath all this.
I mean, I probably don't, like, I always praise my mum in my speeches, but obviously you would have saw more than what I possibly would have, the sort of things my mum had to go through, you know. So I mean, from your recollection as working at the school at the time, seeing my mum, you know, bring me to school and everything, I mean, from what you can remember, conversations with her, I mean, what was it like for her at that time, you know, trying to...
Well, it was hard, Max, wasn't it? Because, you know, nobody wants to get told your children, you know, from a school, no matter whether it's here or Sunderland, no... in their own right. No parent wants to get told, or carers, whoever, like he or she is being a proper problem. Nobody, I'm sure all parents want to be, if your child's not that sort of like switched on education wise,
Yeah.
and everybody's not. But at the end of the day, at least I think all parents want to know, but they're really well behaved at school. I think that's probably the number one, more than all. They're really good at art, they're really good at this, but their behaviour is awful.
Yeah.
I think any parent would sort of, their behaviour is exceptional. So your mum had to deal with that, like, oh, we've had a bit of a problem with Max today. He decided, instead of working this morning, he's going to go running around everywhere within the school premises and outside, not the gates, but like across the field, the playing field. And that's sort of hard for your mum to take, because like she'd go, I mean, I can remember sort of saying, oh, please tell me you've had a good day. And like you sort of just see the beaming smile on her face. We have actually. And then it was probably down like we've been singing it. But I can remember those, she had this sort of beaming smile. Oh, you're like, that's a relief. Yeah, so that point of view we dealt with.
And do you think, obviously I always sort of think, I was once asked during a speech, do you believe in naughty children? And I always, well, actually, I'll get your opinion. Do you believe in naughty children?
Do I believe in naughty? That's a tough question, Max, that is. I think some children know how to be naughty, and they know there's not much of a deterrent for being naughty. I don't mean like, oh, they need to go bashing and stuff, not like that at all.
No.
I don't mean that. But like,
there's no consequences for the actions.
Yeah, right. There's different consequences. But I think some children know that I'm going to do this and
get away with it.
Yeah, not supposed to get away with it, or you'll lose your playtime and stuff like that. And whether that's the right deterrent, who knows? Everybody's got their different views. But I think some children, well, I'll decide I'm going to throw all this around the classroom and they'll keep me in at dinner time. And it's cold outside, so I'll probably end up with a bit of a bonus because I'm staying in the warm.
Definitely, yeah. Never thought of it like that. I feel a bit of an idiot now. I should have been doing that.
Yeah.
It's cold outside.
Yeah. throw the pencils around the classroom, he'll keep me in. Oh, lovely. It's freezing outside, -5. Stay in the warm for dinner time. And a right result here.
I never even thought of that. I feel like I've missed out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I don't want to play football for the special time.
Yeah,
I'll throw the pencils about.
Yeah. Poor Mr. Frying Idiot, then he'll keep us in.
God. I mean, I always believe, I don't believe in naughty children, I believe in naughty behaviour.
Yeah.
And I think behaviour is a form of communication, and that communication, of course, can be bad. But if it's the only communication that child knows, so in your instance, if a child knows, if I throw a pencil or call Mr. Fry an idiot, I'll get what I want. And that's the communication that they know. It's probably not the right communication. The right communication would probably say, Mr. Fry, can I actually stay in here? Because I don't want to go outside. It's -5. I'm going to be freezing. Can I just stay in here? But some kids just don't know how to do that.
No, I mean, there's naughty children. I mean, bullying that's a non-start for me, full stop.
Yeah.
I do not put up with none of that.
No.
Or being sworn at.
Yeah.
That's another one.
But again, they probably live in an environment though where, and this isn't me condoning it. They shouldn't do it. Period. I mean, I was bullied very badly when I was at school, when I went to the park, but people do it because
it's a non-starter in my book all the time. I'd sooner be sworn at day in and day out than have to deal with somebody that he or she is being bullied. That's a non-starter. And nobody wants that at school.
No.
Well, you don't want to have to wake up in the morning thinking, wow, I know exactly what's going to happen today.
You know what surprises me though, and you've probably had it, I was a firm believer that bullying stops when you leave school. And as I've got older,
oh no, it goes on.
It goes on, it goes on in a more of a less of a better word of a sort of your mind is destroyed because it's done in such a more sophisticated sly way that you know if you sort of said to someone you said that it at school it's very black and white, isn't it? Oh, matey boy called me this, matey boy called me that, and if they ever turn around and go, oh, I was only joking, the teacher just turns around and goes, don't care if you were joking, you shouldn't have said it. In the workplace, it's so more like, and it's a question for you. I don't know why there's any leeway. We got teachers telling kids, no matter what, don't do that, don't say that. But it's like the minute you go into a workplace and someone says something, it's a bit like, yeah, but he was only joking, or and it's like, why are we so tough on kids? To set the example.
Bullying does happen in the workplace. For all sorts. It's not occurred to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
to be honest, I wouldn't stand for it, to be honest, either.
And I think, again, I mean, for autistic people, the workplace is still, I think it's very difficult because there are times when it's hard for an autistic individual to possibly understand the difference between what is banter versus what could be bullying. But in a lot of the cases I've heard is it goes from banter to, the case where actually it's like I'm getting
up to another level.
You said, I'm getting up in the morning and I don't want to go in. And
nobody needs that.
Yeah. I mean, so for you as well, I asked you this last time. I think your exact response, and I can't remember, was that's too long of a story. So I will ask you at this time. What sort of made you get into education? How did you sort of start that journey? Because generally interested.
Really weird, Max, this. Cut a long story short, I was in a band.
Okay.
In a band, long story short, in a band, going really successful, had a nasty accident, everything wrote off, guy was uninsured, so we got nothing.
God.
Literally. So what have you got to do? Nothing. Everything's gone, so followed the band, used to go down here, take my lad to school, and the head one day came out and said, can we have a quick word? So went in and had a word, and he said, it was quite embarrassing for him really, he said, I don't know how to put this, he said, but do you work nights? He said, are you out unemployed? And I told him what had happened. And he said, where's somebody? He said, we're looking for somebody, he says, to help out at the school. And I said, well, I really don't sort of fancy this, if you could just come and unlock for me. And so I don't fancy it really. And he said, well, just help me out. Years later, Max, I never got out the bloody door.
I love it.
And then it was sort of like one of those things, could you help out with so-and-so now? We've got a bit of a problem here, could you go and do this? Could you help out? And then they sort of said, as went on and went through different heads, you're really good at music and that, would you mind doing this? You do sport, you do this. And then it sort of developed, and then, hang on a minute, could you go and sit with people like you?
Yeah.
And so I never got out the place.
It's like School of Rock.
It was a bit, yeah. Yeah, so, and that's what happened.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
And did you ever look back? Did you ever sort of think, oh God, I wish I hadn't? There was probably days with me that you...
I sort of continue sort of playing in bands and stuff. No, did I ever look back? I really enjoyed working with kids. The other bits could get a bit sort of political now and again, but
Yeah.
the kids is what made
The difference.
Yeah, for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you definitely made a lasting impact on all the students. You know?
Well, you see sort of children now. I see children, and not all of them, like bumped into you, and it's great. And like all the ones that I can think, if ever I see them, nobody ever says, "Oh, look who's here, look who's turned up, look who's in the pub." Look, everybody's always been sort of like really polite. How are you? You know what you're doing and stuff. And
I think you, and I don't just say this because I'm interviewing you. You did leave a lasting impression on a lot of people, and that's quite hard to do, considering your role. You know, because you often remember, you know, like the head of your form, or you often remember the head teacher. You often, you know, but you used to. I don't know. You had so many hats. You know, you had the drama, you had the music, you had the
red one as well,
and the red, yeah, the green, the blue,
green, grey.
But you did, you know, and I don't know. Every it was sort of like anyone that had a problem, Pete, you know, asked Pete, you know, here, no. So I think when the kids see you now, well, they've got nothing but good memories.
It's like I said, we're bumping into people. They were sort of like, you know, boys and girls.
Yeah.
And some of them like sort of grow up. I don't even recognise them first off. Think, oh my word,
is that so and so? And you think, Jesus.
Yeah, well, it wasn't him.
Yeah.
Never taught him.
I mean, it is. It's. I mean, it's crazy to think that I left primary school 2008.
Yeah.
And that's going to be in 3 years. That's going to be 20 years ago.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, where's that gone?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
nuts.
Yeah. And I remember the last ever song that I sang at primary. It was the summer concert that we always used to do.
Yeah.
And I think you got us to sing "Help" by the Beatles.
All right.
Yeah, and we all sang that, and that was the last. And then you got me back as a judge the next year for the X Factor.
I asked you to sing that for me.
Yeah.
Help.
Yeah, you needed it.
I did.
The irony.
Yeah, he's off.
Yeah.
Help.
Yeah, I need somebody. Help. Not just anybody.
Yeah.
Help. And that's the thing, I still remember the words. I've probably not heard that song in years.
Oh, really?
But I still, you know, but I suppose my last question to you, Pete, would be, you know, if we were sat here talking in 2 years, you know, so that'd be series 8 of the Autism Connections at that point. It's more than likely going to, you know, might be our last interview, you know. Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
No, I don't mean in that way. I just mean... no, not in that way. Take that back, No, I just mean in terms of the Autism Connections, because it's probably going to be more series 10. But if we was to speak in, you know, say 2 years, you know, what would you have hoped that has changed in the world of neurodiversity and autism? You know, what?
Well, I don't sort of think change. As I said, it's you understand it more than me, but you know, I think you'll be able to answer this question more than me. I think there's more sort of like openness about your condition now.
Yeah.
People talk about it more. People talk about mental health more now, which that used to be a thing. Oh, you know, suffers from mental problems. We'll keep that quiet.
Yeah.
You know, and that's another big thing. I think that's a biggie to talk about these things. You know, talk about talk about mental health. I don't mean that you suffer from mental health.
No,
but
I know.
Anybody that does, you know, like, so hopefully things are moving in that right direction, that people are becoming more open about this thing. And like, I don't mean just you, but I'll use your name. Oh, Mac, go careful, Max is autistic. Some people, really? Oh, don't want too much to do with him then. Or, or don't get too near Max, he's autistic.
Yeah, sounds like a cold, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's like one of those things. If you break your wrist, if you turn up today and I've got, oh, what's happened, Pete? I've broken a wrist, Max. you can see that. You can see that kind. You can't look at you and say, well, Max is autistic. You can't look at anybody and say, well, they're suffering from mental health.
Yeah.
You can't. And I think it's important to talk about these issues. And hopefully, like you said, next time we talk, it's even moved a step forward. And you're walking through the door and saying, you know, Pete, you've seen I've now got a starring role in I don't know what.
Well, we can all dream.
Well, yeah, but it's good, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I think you're right. It's about being mindful, isn't it? And just...
Yeah.
Because we often get wrapped in our own lives, and we often forget, you know, that...
I think it's like a lot of things, it's like, you know, you get knocked back in your profession, anybody, and all things, and, you know, and so did I. So, and I suppose it's having the will not to give up at that sort of like, well, if you take a boxer, if he gets knocked down, or you know, yeah, if you get knocked down and you don't get up, he's been hit pretty hard. But, and they get beat, the boxers get beat.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they would have to retire at some point. But the normal thing is, I'm coming back and having another go. Yeah. And I'm coming back, and the next minute, the one that keeps getting beat, all of a sudden, it's his moment. And I think you have to sort of like keep pursuing that dream, don't you? That I'm going to win, I'm going to beat this.
Yeah. You might have lost the battle, but you've not lost the war.
Yeah, and hopefully it works.
Yeah.
You know, obviously some cases it doesn't, but like it's having that belief, isn't it? Like you and your act, well, okay, got the door shut on me. Well, like I said earlier, Max, you sell ice to the people that live in the Arctic, so if they close the door on you, you know for well it's going to get a knock. If you're going to hear this,
yeah,
it's me again.
Yeah, yeah, and it's true. It's if you've got the grit and the willpower to do that, then actually deep down you'll be all right.
Yeah,
might not be what you envisioned. It might not be what you wanted.
Yeah,
but as long as you've got a heart and it's still beating, and you're still breathing, you still got a fight. So yeah. Well, Pete, thank you for coming on the show.
That's quite a pleasure, Max, again.
And I'll be selling you ice in the next 2 years. Thank you for Pete to come on. Obviously, we've got the online interviews, the next 3 happening soon. So, guys, thank you. Thank you, Pete, again. And
pleasure, Max.
Thank you for coming on.
Cheers.